Hello everybody, my name is Dimitar Berov. I work at the Laboratory of Marine Ecology, which is part of the Institute of Biodiversity and Ecosystem Research in the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. My talk will mostly focus on the coastal ecosystems in the Burgas Bay, which is basically the same region as all these wetlands and lakes that you saw in the previous presentations. We're basically working on the other side of the beach, and the two systems are very linked together. So for us, it's really important to have this interaction with our colleagues here. I will talk about the different monitoring approaches that we apply in the different ecosystems in the coastal zone. Our main, of course, interest is in the eutrophication, which is the major problem of coastal ecosystems in the Black Sea. I will briefly show you some data on the fish stock assessment, benthic ecosystems, and then I will talk more about the Sozopol Bay case, which is a very interesting coastal marine ecosystem where active management was applied and it had some really positive results. Very different from the coastal lagoons work, but still a management action. Our laboratory is located in Sozopol, which is south of here for those who don't know the area. It has been operating for over 30 years now, and its main focus is work on the coastal zone of the Burgas Bay and Sozopol Bay. Our monitoring and research is focused on this driver pressure state impact and response matrix, which follows the impacts of biotic and abiotic pressures on the ecosystems in the marine environment. And the data that we create is provided to management authorities and decision makers for the actual management of the coastal ecosystems on the southern Bulgarian coast. Very briefly, the Black Sea is a very special marine ecosystem because of the many ecological problems that are happening in the area. It is a very close basin which receives a lot of inputs of nutrients and pollution from the big major European rivers like the Danube, the Dnieper River. Because of the highly developed industry in agriculture, which wasn't controlling the pollution and release of nutrients in the waters. In the 1970s and the 1980s, the ecosystem of the Black Sea completely changed. This was also due to the overexploitation of fish stocks and the introduction of non-indigenous species that destroyed local species and trophic chains and populations of different animals and plants. This is just one example of areas with hypoxia being developed. This is areas in the sea bottom where no oxygen is present. As you can imagine, this is destroying the coastal ecosystems very rapidly. This also happened in the Burgas Bay in the 1980s. Our work is focused on different aspects of the marine environment. We have a long-term monitoring program on the nutrient concentrations in the coastal waters, which has been running since the 1980s, since this period of high pollution period. More recently, we've started different programs on monitoring of the coastal benthic ecosystems, the marine macroalgae and seagrasses, the salt bottom and hard bottom zoobenthos, and also assessments and modeling of commercial fish stocks in the Bulgarian and in the Black Sea waters in general. This is just one example of one example of this long-term series of concentrations of nutrients in the coastal waters of, this is from Sozopol. There is a long-term tendency for the decrease in concentrations of nitrogen and phosphates, which are the main drivers for change in productivity of the marine waters. Yeah, so there's a long-term tendency from, I don't know if you see the data, this is from the 1980s until the current, well, this is a shorter time series, but it continues until presently. Of course, we have these seasonal peaks and lows in the productivity of the waters. And one interesting aspect, which I don't have here as a graph, is that in the 2022 spring, we had an unusually high spring bloom of phytoplankton, which was visible by probably everyone who works and lives here. Very important result is that there are strong variations in the coastal water quality due to local pressures and sources of pollution and nutrient inputs, especially in the inner Burgas Bay, near the wetlands of around Burgas. Just to give you an example of that, this is a map of the southern coast of the Burgas Bay. Burgas is here, and this is southward Sozopol. Our monitoring has shown that there's a gradual decrease in the concentration of nutrients from the inner Burgas Bay towards Sozopol and the Cape Maslenos in the south, which is continuously, it's not something seasonal, this is a continuous process. Basically, the nutrients that are being released in the inner Burgas Bay near the outflows of the wetlands of Burgas, like the Mandra-Poda lakes, and also the diffusion of nutrients from industry and agriculture around Burgas, has created this eutrophication pressure gradient, where you have different conditions in the inner bay towards, which are gradually improving towards the southern part of the bay. It also happens in the north towards Pomoria and Nesebar. Okay, this is somewhat different data, but it's related to the productivity of the waters in the coastal zone. This is aggregation of data on the commercial fisheries in the Burgas Bay and also in the Bulgarian Black Sea coast in general. As you can see, the majority of the fishing effort in landing of fish stocks in Bulgaria is happening in the Burgas Bay area, mostly offshore from Sozopol, Nesebar, and in the open sea. There are only 8 fish stocks that are being exploited in Bulgaria, and of these, the anchovy and the Black Sea sprat take more than 90% of the fisheries. The other species are migratory fish species or locally present in different seasons, which are not important. And most importantly, all of these species are overexploited or depleting, with the exception of the sprat, which is somewhat sustainable. And the presence of this sprat in the Burgas Bay is also related to the high productivity of the marine waters here. Another aspect which we monitor regularly is the state of the benthic ecosystems. Just to give you an example, this is the southern coast of the Black Sea. The benthic ecosystems in the soft bottoms in the center are the basis of the food webs in the coastal zone. Many of the fish species and invertebrates that feed on these communities depend on the good condition of these ecosystems. So the presence of this pollution and eutrophication gradient impacts their state. The further you go out of the Burgas Bay, the better is the ecological status of these ecosystems. There's an improvement in biodiversity of biomass and overall improvement of the quality. The same is also true for the marine macroalgae that grow on the rocky reefs in the shallow zone. These are some of the most biodiverse ecosystems in the Black Sea. There's a gradual improvement from the very polluted sites here towards the south, where you have natural marine ecosystems which are typical for the Black Sea before this process of increased eutrophication pressures. The marine seagrasses, which are dominant by Zostera marina and Zostera notiers, are also very well represented in the Burgas Bay. Actually, most of the seagrass beds in the Bulgarian Black Sea coast are within the Burgas Bay. And one of the biggest Zostera meadows is located in front of the Atanasescu Lake. It's almost south of at least of what we have mapped so far of this habitat is actually here in front of Burgas and Sarajevo. A very brief case of what's happening in the Sozopol Bay. Before 2015, all the wastewaters of the city of Burgas and the whole municipality were dumped in the bay without any water treatment. This was releasing a lot of nutrients. You see the numbers here, they don't tell you much, but this was a major pollution source which really changed the ecosystem in the area. In 2016, a wastewater treatment plant was constructed, which basically stopped this pollution of the waters in the Sozopol Bay and in the area. And this has resulted in a gradual improvement in water quality and also in the state of the coastal ecosystems there. This is just maps showing you the different properties of the water, but we'll not go into details, but basically the pollution stopped and it really changed the ecosystem there. This is a series of photos showing the restoration of the typical coastal reefs with Cistuzera macroalgal communities. In 2018, just in the vicinity of the old sewage outflow, we had just a very undeveloped and macroalgal seabeds. And by 2020, these Cystosera prawns have completely recovered. Another interesting observation that we only recently found is that the previously non-existent Zostera meadow, which was located right in front of the outflow of the old sewage, is actually completely recovered. We only found this summer. We haven't really been doing any surveys there before because the waters were really polluted and didn't allow us to do any work there. So these are recent photos. You can see the typical Zostera marina, Zostera noti, and the Zanichelia and Rupia maritima is also present. Yeah, this is another, I don't have time for this, but the old sewage outflow really created long-lasting pollution with microplastics in the sediments of the area, which is still there, unfortunately, and will not go away. And finally, in terms of management, this is a brief overview of what's happening in the Sozopol Bay area. The maritime part of the bay is part of the Natura 2000 area, Gradina Zlatna Ribka, which was proposed back in 2013. And only last year it was officially designated with some management rules officially. In the meantime, our institute, together with partners from other, in the frame of this Reconnect project, managed to map all the habitats there and determine their ecological status. But this was not work done with collaboration with the Ministry of Environment. This was a research project. We tried to publicize the importance of these ecosystems through citizen science campaigns and involvement of local divers and fishermen in the protection and showcasing the biodiversity in the area. The management measures include different rules that are supposed to protect the Zostera seagrass bed, the Cystosera forest, the mussel beds, and also limit the pollution and the overexploitation of living resources in the area. Fortunately, there is no management plan in place, actually. It's as we call it, a paper MPA. It's only really on paper. There's a map, there are rules, but there's nobody really to apply these rules and to manage that area. But maybe the only really good thing that happened was this wastewater treatment plant. Really, it showed that these kind of active measures can really help to recover and improve the marine ecosystems in the coastal zone. Okay, I think I'm on time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.